Well, to discuss this, I'm joined now from Erbil by the KRG's Coordinator for International Advocacy, Dindar Zebari. And in Baghdad is Human Rights Watch's senior Iraq researcher and author of the report, Belkis Wille. Thanks both of you for joining us. Dindar Zebari, let me start with you, sir. Did KRG forces torture kids into confessing that they were Daesh members?
Thank you for invitation for the program. KRG certainly not. KRG did not torture. KRG has hosted 1,300,000 of IDP Sunni Arabs, mostly from other territories of Iraq. Some of them turn up in the reception centers or in the IDP camps where they were having some sort of affiliations with ISIL. Asaish security has arrested them, and all has gone through the normal process of arrest under judicial authority, full superiority, and there are special facilities for those who have been under 18 years old, juvenile, and women, where they have been kept differently from the adults to look at their daily situation and make sure that they are well treated. And the strategy is to bring them back to society
I want to ask you
as
one
soon
more
as
question.
possible.
Certainly. I want to ask you one more question before I bring in Belkis. Can you tell me with absolute certainty from your end that all of those who have been tried and convicted of being members of Daesh or ISIS have been tried and convicted fairly?
All who have been arrested, they were arrested by the judge warrant under the judicial process. And those who have been convicted, they were convicted within the laws and legislations that are certainly available. And there are also a big number of them, around 1,400 of the ISIL detainees that have recently submitted KRG authorities to Iraqi federal authorities. And in terms of those who have been convicted, especially with juvenile, the conviction do not goes beyond 3 to 4 years sentence, because there is special care, special treatment, and special regulations for them.
Belkis Wille, no torture, fair trials. I'm assuming you disagree. Tell me why.
Yes, I do disagree. Earlier in November 18, 21, and 22, my colleague and I from Human Rights Watch went to the reformatory in Erbil that houses child detainees and female detainees. And we had the opportunity of interviewing 20 boys, 16 of whom, in private, separate interviews, told us unprompted that they had been tortured. The torture had occurred when they were captured by the Asaish, the security forces, but before they had been transferred to this special facility, a facility indeed where the treatment is better. They were tortured in the context of interrogations and in the context very specifically of extracting a confession. They were beaten, in some cases electrocuted, until they told interrogators what interrogators wanted to hear. Now, the reason that these testimonies are so credible is because they are practically identical to what we heard 2 years ago when we went to that reformatory. We interviewed at the time 19 boys, 17 of whom again spoke about torture, spoke about the exact same stress positions, the same kind of beatings.
Okay, so Dindar, beating, stress positions, electric shocks on boys in their custody. Isn't it in your interest as the KRG government to look into this, to take it seriously, and to find out who's been doing this, because there seems to be strong, credible information coming out that this is happening? Why don't you sort it out rather than deny it?
Yeah. First of all, KRG has given full access to most of the international NGOs to visit the detainees, a specific one in Erbil, which Ms. Belkis has indicated right now. So far, there is a procedure in this regard. There must be complaint by the victims themselves or by the detainees themselves during the investigation with the judge of investigation. or there must be a filing within the medical record of the investigation to indicate that there is some sort of torture has been conducted. Now, for a judge to decide and for the authority to decide, there must be reasons and there must be sort of a complaint have been submitted to our authorities. Just for the Human Rights Watch themselves, we have requested on several times that if there are any sort of allegations, we would be quite happy and ready to discuss.
These are the allegations.
To go together and
okay.
to
but Dindar,
the process.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. And there's a slight delay here. Certainly, there's a slight delay between us, so it makes it a bit worse. But let's try and power through this. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Belkis is making the allegation here. The report itself is the allegation. And so they're saying, here's the information, do something about it, and you're questioning the credibility.
The credibility, yes. I'm questioning the credibility of these
allegations.
On what basis? Because
on what basis?
herself, she is a representative of Human Rights Watch. Yeah. On what basis? She has the full access to authorities. She has the full access to myself and to many other colleagues
you're saying you gave human rights. You're saying you gave Human Rights Watch access to the detainees. Right. You're saying you gave Human Rights Watch access to the detainees, and that's wonderful. That's good. And when they speak to the detainees say we were tortured, and then you say we don't believe you. So I don't know. What do you want? Some sort of praise for giving them access? It's the more important thing is what the detainees are telling them, isn't it?
It is easy enough for any detainee around the world to claim that he has been tortured. But I think there must be certain process that, or certain procedures that the government of KRG or any government around the world to have the details about it, the medical record, the file of the investigation of the specific detainee. So there are certain process that,
so
the government must make action on it. But if I hear this from the report itself.
Okay, so let me ask Belkis. Belkis, let's just clarify this for the record then. The accusation from Dindar is that you're going and you're meeting these young boys and they're telling you a story and you're not verifying the credibility of that story with supplementary or complementary evidence that goes with it. Has that been what has been going on?
Absolutely not. I think first and foremost, as I already said, the level of consistency between boys over a 2-year period who we are interviewing alone, who are not preparing for our interview, who are not sitting together and making up stories. The consistency of the torture that they're describing and the context of that torture is remarkable in and of itself. I would add that 5 of these boys told us in front of the investigative judge, when they were brought before the judge, they told the judge that they had been tortured. The judges, in each instance, they said, simply ignored that claim and moved on with the trial. So I ask Dr. Zebari, if these boys are trying to ask for an investigation, ask for forensic medical reports by telling the judge that they're being tortured, and that allegation is ignored by the judge, then of course it's extremely difficult for these boys to do what he's suggesting and to lodge an official complaint.
Yeah, okay, that's an interesting point, and let's just dig into the report for a moment. Dindar, have a little listen to this. The Human Rights Watch report cites a 14-year-old boy called Khalaf who described his trial in August. He said, at the trial, the judge asked if I was ISIS or not. I said I wasn't. He read my confession. I said my confession came from torture. But the judge didn't say anything. He sentenced me to 6 months. The trial lasted about 10 minutes. Dindar, doesn't that warrant a closer look?
This is few stories conveyed or transferred or said by some of the detainees. We talk about thousands of detainees in Kurdistan region, and the process of judicial process goes on very well. Now, with the specific cases that you mentioned, I'm asking Human Rights Watch very, very clearly and very transparently, if there is a record, again, medical record or investigation record that indicates certain torture or indicates certain sort of confession on the torture basis, Why they are not sharing with ourselves? Why they are not sharing with the government? Now, there is no single evidence or witness inside the report of Human Rights Watch that indicate what the stories are, what the story says.
Belkis, do you have witnesses and additional evidence to provide beyond the report?
What we have are the individual victims themselves. In some cases, there are marks on bodies, marks that we won't be able to verify months later were potentially a result of the torture, but that need to be investigated. Again, the consistency of the narratives, the consistency of the types of torture used at the very least merit serious investigation by the Kurdistan Regional Government. Now, when Dr. Zebari is talking about why haven't we provided forensic medical examinations, those would have to be ordered by judges. If judges are not investigating allegations of torture and are not ordering the forensic medical exams, those exams do not exist. That's why we're not able to provide them. What we have called on since 2 years is for a serious investigation of these allegations and for the government to really try to get to the bottom of what types of techniques are being used during interrogations against not only children but also adult suspects.
Yeah, so Belkis, something I'm trying to get crystal clarity on is, from among those 20 boys that you spoke to, do they have anybody else to talk to if they want to bring up a complaint? Because the point being made by Dr. Zebari is that they have lots of avenues to register a complaint and provide their evidence and so on. Besides talking to you, do they have other people to turn to?
Well, ideally, and as per law, they should have a lawyer. A lawyer would be the way for them to lodge a complaint and take their allegations forward. However, of the 20 boys, 16 had no idea at all that they had the right to a lawyer. Authorities had never told them they had the right to a lawyer. Or they thought, maybe I can get a lawyer, but my parents would have to pay significant amounts of money. Most of these families do not have that kind of money. None of them knew that the state had an obligation to appoint them with a free lawyer. Of the 4 boys who thought they had a lawyer, 2 weren't even sure. They said someone showed up in their trial, was speaking Kurdish to the judge, and might have been their lawyer, but never directly interacted with them. So these boys do not have someone to speak to as their advocate who can speak to a judge and appeal on their behalf to investigate allegations of torture.
Dindar Zebari, these kids don't have anybody to talk to or turn to. That's why they go to Human Rights Watch.
No, that's not true. That's not true. Most of the detainees, ISIL detainees, they have been fully informed that they have a right and access to a lawyer, and on the cost of the government, a lawyer has been assigned for them in the day of the investigation and prior and after. UNICEF recently has joined the platform, and UNICEF already has assigned in that specific reformatory center that Ms. Belkis referred to it. A lawyer has been assigned by UNICEF to have again full access for the juvenile. Some other international NGOs through the implementing partners like local NGOs. I have a list of those names. Again, they are visiting these juvenile individuals. U.S. Consulate General and again other diplomatic missions in Erbil also. I myself was one of them that have accompanied them to visit some of the detainees in the past in the same reformatory facilities. And then KRG has no benefit to have any confession under torture, because KRG, if you look at the list of the detainees in Kurdistan region, we have thousands of detainees. Some of the detainees in Huwayja a year and a half ago, they have submitted themselves to Peshmerga forces. They have already confessed they were ISIL, and they prefer to submit themselves to KRG, not to the Hashd al-Sha'bi or mobilization forces. So there is no need KRG put anyone under specific measures to confess. We have, as I said, very much in favor of returning these juveniles to their own home and their own families. And that's why the efforts are underway with Baghdad in this regard. And recently, some of them have been again transferred to Nainawa. Now, the problem is these juveniles, they have lost their families. And for KRG to get access to their families, it has a lot of difficulty for this. But never mind, we kept them in special facilities authorities, not under Asayish, not under anti-terrorism department. And recently, even special classes have been put in place for them, like Arabic language classes, to make sure they follow up like E-class programs. So the KRG wants to help them, to bring them back to society. No need to have any sort of confession for 20, 30 of these juveniles, where we speak about thousands of them in the past few years.
Belkis?
I think it would be very important, given the 2 years of allegations that we've been raising, to see a commitment, a clear commitment from the Kurdistan Regional Government that they will investigate these allegations. 2 years ago, after our last report, Dr. Zebari said that the KRG had launched a commission to investigate and would be doing so in conjunction with the UN assistance mission in Iraq. I have tried for the last 2 years to get an update as to what that commission was able to find and what their work included. We have received no information whatsoever about this commission to investigate, which leads me to think that very little, if not nothing, has been done to look into our allegations. If our allegations are baseless, then conduct an investigation and prove that they're baseless.
Okay, very finally, Dindar Zebari, where's the commission?
I think very good point. Ms. Belkis has referred to it. I personally chaired that commission. It's not a commission. It's a joint committee between KRG and UNICEF and UNAMI. And we have even requested UNAMI and UNICEF to come on board and to be with us for the not only investigation, but to follow up on the situation of detainees in general in presence in KRG. And I think the same question must be addressed to UNAMI and UNICEF. I have invited them many times, and I have taken them to anti-terrorism department and Asayish and juvenile presence, where they already have full access to do their own investigations. But the question must be addressed to themselves, because from our side we are ready, and we have that access available for the colleagues from UN and specifically UNICEF and UNAMI.
Okay, well, I guess given the latest allegations leveled in the Human Rights Watch report, I guess you're taking it as a matter of urgency to get that commission or committee going, because clearly there's a bit of a traffic jam here with information, and it's been important, I think, to chair this conversation between the two of you. I thank you both for joining us here on the Newsmakers, Dindar Zebari and Belkis Wille. Looking forward to chatting to you again.